video, very recent video actually, by Everything Money, and they're going to describe to us why Bitcoin is a huge scam. Of course, they will not conflate Bitcoin with crypto, and they will not conflate exchanges with the Bitcoin network. Let's here we go.
Bitcoin. It's called a digital gold. It's called the future of money, and it's a hedge against inflation. But what if I told you that Bitcoin might actually be the biggest financial scam of our time? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the
And I'll just add that this has been said about Bitcoin in particular. I'm not sure about crypto. I'm going to focus on Bitcoin here, but he's going to play the two. But it's been said of Bitcoin since it reached $10, from nothing, right? $10 to $100 and $1,000 and $10,000, and that's $100,000. This has been said over and over and over again. So, interested to hear if he can finally find that missing piece that explains why it's still a scam after all this price action. Something that he knows that most people don't know.
crypto ecosystem, exposing the fraud, manipulation, and speculative hype driving Bitcoin, and why you should think twice before investing. Bitcoin's story starts with three key selling points that makes everybody's panties get all excited. A limited supply of 21 million coins, decentralization of a currency, and freedom from government control.
Yeah, he's right overall. The decentralization part, though, and the no government is one of the major things. I think the white paper talked about solving double spend problem for digital currency, as well as having a peer-to-peer network of exchange of value where you don't need a middleman. So not only a government, but a bank or financial institution, a credit system, PayPal, and the like.
This was the premise behind Bitcoin and why it would be a great changer for how we interact with each other financially. But when you strip away all the buzzwords,
So just to cut that out, I'm not sure that Bitcoin itself is supposed to radically change how you and I interact with the fiat currency world and purchase things like cars and fiat currencies. And I don't think that was ever the proposition. And I'll once again go back to the fact that the network was designed intentionally for security's sake to only have a throughput of 7 transactions per second. So the person or group who built crypto, obviously well studied in economic theory, global finances, as well as cryptography and computer science. They understood that they are not going to be competing with MasterCard on this network. That was never the idea.
here's the reality: Bitcoin has no intrinsic value, no earnings.
It's true. Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. Seashells have no intrinsic value. Ornamental feathers have no intrinsic value. Large polished stones have no intrinsic value. Um, Gold. I guess you could argue these things do have intrinsic. I guess you could drop a stone on someone, or you can use it for some sort of catapult system. And so, just too with gold, you can use it to create, jewelry. Again, it would have no intrinsic value. It's like art, but also you can use it for electronic components. Okay, go on.
No dividends. If you think it has intrinsic value, you are going to lose a lot of money in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not on Bitcoin, but on some other thing.
So this is very interesting. So he said maybe not on Bitcoin, but on some other. So the argument he's saying here, just to clarify, if you're so stupid to think that Bitcoin has intrinsic value, if you're such a fucking moron that you think that, even if you don't lose money on Bitcoin, so he's making this concession. Bitcoin seems to be going up, up and up and up. So he's kind of like, he's not talking shit. They usually, these iterations in the past would have been like, you will lose money and you lose money on Bitcoin. Now he's hesitating, which is very interesting. But he's saying, if you're so gullible to get in on Bitcoin, even though you don't lose money on Bitcoin because it keeps going up, so you're stupid to get in, but it keeps going up. But you're going to be stupid enough to believe something else, and that's where you lose money, right?
Its entire worth depends on people believing it's worth something more tomorrow than today.
I'd like to know as well. Yeah. So Jack Bogle, I read his book on index funds and mutual funds. Common Sense Guide to Investing. Yeah, Greater Fool Theory. So again, this has been said about crypto from Bitcoin specifically. Let me focus on Bitcoin since $100, since $10. People were shocked that it was worth anything. So this is not an old argument.
You're hoping that you wake up tomorrow and somebody else says, I will pay you more for that.
So let's see again. Like we want to focus on why he believes that this argument, this long-standing argument, which seems to have not been proven true, is in fact true, and he's going to give us the
So he
goods.
might sit there and say, well, you've said that before. Everybody keeps saying that it keeps going up in
Hmm.
value.
Okay.
That's what happens during hype.
Okay. So again, so it's hard for me to distinguish for now hype from something like Bitcoin, which we've never seen before. So please distinguish.
Look at the tulips back in the 1600s.
Right, and so that lasted between 1634. It actually has the numbers here. That's great. And 1637. So I guess one question we would have is like if you would like to use tulip bulbs as an example, then let's say does the time periods match? No. So 15 years versus under 4 years. Okay, Adam, not only about the time periods. So let's do a recovery from a subsequent crash, right? So tulip bubbles, they crashed, but then they went up again, right? And they went up again higher, and then they crashed. No, no, they just crashed the one. Okay. So the analogy between tulip bubbles and Bitcoin seems to be lost again. I think he's going to take the super scam theory, where he's like, Bitcoin is still like the tulip bubbles, even though we've never seen on the planet something like Bitcoin. Um, I've identified it with no other previous examples or previous knowledge as being a new classification of like a super scam. Uh,
Why do those keep going up in value?
cool.
If Bitcoin feels familiar, it's because we've seen these speculative bubbles many times before. And
Yeah, and
we
let
will
me just ask too, in the Bitcoin cycles, like Bitcoin keeps crashing. So when he says that people FOMO into something and there's a mania, by definition, every single time there's a Bitcoin cycle, that's exactly what happens. There is FOMO, there is a mania, right? Like there's no denying this. The so like I'm in agreement with him. This is insane. These things are going up over a 6 months period, 3x, 10x, and of course all the altcoins. But we're not focusing on that. We're focusing on Bitcoin right now. There's a mass feeding frenzy, and then it crashes, which should be the end of the story. But it's not. It has kept going. This is like the fourth bull run now, if you don't count like the very early days.
never stop seeing them. Think about cannabis stocks like Tilray, which skyrocketed to $300 in 2018 before crashing to $1.41.
Okay, so this is analogous with our use case. We've got 2018 to 2024. The crash happened from 2018. There's no recovery in sight. I don't understand how this is related, how this matches Bitcoin in the way he thinks it does to make the case he wants to make. He's saying that people get into a mania, whether this is the dot-com bubble, or whether it's tulip bulbs, or whether it's Bitcoin, or whether it's other altcoins. People get into manias, and then there's a crash. For all the ones that he's explaining, there's no recovery, and it doesn't keep getting bigger. So there's some missing ingredient. I'm sure he's going to explain it.
A 99.5%
Yeah.
loss. Electric vehicle companies like NIO peaked at 66.99 before plunging to 470. Workhorse going bankrupt. Tattooed Chef going bankrupt and going under. What do these bubbles have in common? A story that's too good to resist and prices that can't be justified, but more importantly, human envy and FOMO.
Okay. Again, like that's what happens in every Bitcoin. So this is the problem that we're like focusing every time I view these rebuttal videos. People are always focusing on either an impending FOMO that's happening or the resultant crash, right? And they're never zooming out and kind of looking at the Bitcoin rainbow chart, basically the visualization of the different periods of Bitcoin. And so this is where I kind of get lost. Like, which one are we just narrowly focusing on it? But he's claiming that he's like speaking for all of Bitcoin, but we're really only focusing on examples of things that go up and then come down, and people lose all their money. There's FOMO.
People can't stand being the ones missing out on the skyrocketing price. Now, I realize we're doing this video.
And I want to make this clear as well, and I've made this point many times, and I'll keep making it. The common sense view that most people have about crypto is that it's a scam. There's a section of the population who are crypto guys. They're in there, they're risking it all. Some of them are becoming rich. The news follows them, but the overall news stories for the past 15 years have been absolutely negative. If you think of the FTX and the Lunaterra examples, if you think of Mt. Gox, if you think of Binance, like absolutely terrible, like literally hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars over 15 years of negative publicity towards crypto and the resultant scams in the field of cryptocurrencies, and also Bitcoin's relation to these scams. he's going to bring that up as well, like North Korean hackers using it as a preferable form of doing business, basically of getting their finalization of their scam, final settlement. Um, let's keep going.
during a time when Bitcoin cannot stop going up. So, of course, you can look at this going, Paul, you're wrong. That could be wrong. But let's understand what an investment
That's good. That's good that he says he could be wrong. So this, we're getting some wins now. Like people are being a little bit more epistemically modest in terms of their talking about crypto, which is very fascinating to me. And again, I say this a lot too. The news overall has stopped featuring people who are going, "What is Bitcoin? I don't know what Bitcoin is," because they know it kind of sounds really silly now. Like that was something that was very common to say in 2016, 2015, 2013. Like, I don't know what is internet money, but now everyone's like, oh shit, like BlackRock's into it. There's an impending American president that's going to be pro crypto. There's trillions of dollars in it now. So let's stop fucking around with that narrative. But I'm just commenting on how I'm seeing the news landscape change for crypto.
is. Because a lot of people say I'm investing in Bitcoin, and I always write immediately speculating.
I agree. I think that I always actually correct myself, and I always tell other people too. We're not investing in crypto; we're speculating. But I would be comfortable. Also, I would extend that, and this is not me trying to be facetious. I would extend that to maybe pretty much all assets that you would like real estate, stocks, index funds. Like I am speculating on the future of the American economy and the solvency of the American government when I buy the S&P 500. So I would actually be even I would agree with what he's saying, but be even more modest in saying that there really isn't investing as a distinction between investing and gambling when it comes to stocks as well. But this is semantics.
In Bitcoin. And guys, there are other things that people speculate into that I've done.
Hmm.
Artwork, baseball cards. These things are all speculative. Why? They don't create anything, they don't generate anything. But when you buy a stock of a company that's generating cash, if the market went away for that company tomorrow, you would still have access and a claim to the free cash flow in the bank account and the assets of the business.
Yeah, this is a very irksome. Like these value investment people, I just meet them all the time. So I think it's something like Google is 20x like their revenue flow in terms of their valuation. There's stocks are generally like on average I think 10 times more than their underlying assets and their profitability. So if there's only 10 units for 100 people who lay claim to it, how much are you really going to get back if the company disappears tomorrow? Like, and are you going to be the first in the pecking order, right? If you you have your stocks and Questrade or Robinhood or whatever, and you've like, I've got $10,000 into this thing, so I should get the 10% back of what's going to be liquidated. So I'm going to get at least $1,000. You're not even going to get that $1,000 back, right? You're gonna have a hard time
And
if they crash and they become like if they pull an Enron, if they just kind of disappear. Of course, he's saying a productive company, so let's not say Enron. Let me just say Google. There's so many claims on that stock compared to the actual value that they have. It's a 10 20x what's the underlying value of the entire organization. So again, I don't feel like it's kind of like fractional reserve banking. It's like, okay, I might have a claim for 10%, and I know I had to fight other people to get that, but I'm just not so confident that this is a good way of looking at it.
until the stock market opened again, let's say 20 years down the road, that business would continue to get more valuable as it drove revenue and profit.
And I'm saying this not because I don't think stocks are valuable. I'm playing along with his game. He's saying, look, stocks are very different than Bitcoin for X and Y and X and Z reason, right? And so I'm just following along with him. Like, okay, I understand the distinction you're making. I just want to make sure that you are cognizant of the distinction that you're making and understand that maybe it's not as impactful as you believe, right? So um, that's it.
But let's take away the value of Bitcoin. How are you going to interact? How do you know what your Bitcoin is worth before you buy something? Supporters claim that Bitcoin could one day replace fiat currency or
So and that's not so. This is a straw man and a red herring. This is not important for asserting that Bitcoin has value and that can be useful. To say that it will replace currencies again. I can't say this more often. The white paper describes peer-to-peer transmission. That was the only goal. There was never a mention of it becoming the global currency. It was other crypto supporters who didn't do the research. Like we're basically defaulting to the lowest common denominator here in our argumentation, this is actually not what was actually discussed by the creators of Bitcoin and the early investors. It's going to replace the dollar. This was other people, other cypherpunks who were in the scene, other anarchical people who were in the scene at the early days. I would say around 2011 to 2014, 15. They started spreading this idea. It's only got 7 transactions per second. It's impossible. It's if you think about it logically, like it's the person who or the group of people who made Bitcoin would never have stupidly said this is going to replace all fiat currencies, right?
Or rival gold as a store of value.
And then you have Goldman Sachs, and you've got BlackRock. You've got these really smart individuals, and this is from 2022. Never mind, we're in 2024. This is in the bear market. They're saying Bitcoin will compete with gold as a store of value, and that's what we're seeing. So we got a lot of smart people who have a lot of money now attached to, I'm hoping some smart money. I don't know what we want to say. Fidelity, ARK Invest, Franklin Templeton, BlackRock. Do we want to say they're all idiots? I don't know. I don't know what he's going to say about that. I don't think he says anything. But these people have done their research, and they are banking on this to some extent. They're not throwing all their wealth in, but they're throwing some wealth in.
But there's no clear roadmap or economic foundation supporting these claims as of now.
I doubt that. I actually don't believe that, but I can elaborate, but I'll let him continue.
People who try to say that, well, what about gold? Yeah, what about gold? Gold has thousands and thousands and thousands of years of evidence that it has other uses besides just a backing of currency.
So this is really good argumentation. I really like this. So, bravo to him. I think that he's doing well in this regard. Gold has a lot more historical data on it, and we can see that once gold became a standard, and it took time for it to spread across the world as being agreed upon as this valuable asset, as something to replace all their other monies and different because it had better properties. It was more divisible. It was easier to store and to make different denominations for it. It didn't tarnish easily, right? And it was also rare enough, but yet also available enough that it had enough liquidity. It was available enough, but it was also rare enough that you couldn't just like double the amount of it in 2 years, which would have you just collapsed it as a standard. So once people found out that gold was actually a really good way for taking our economic energy and extracting it into this more divisible liquid format, storable format, the world took off with it, and it hasn't fallen since then. So the gold is the gold standard of transferring your economic energy into an abstract unit, basically a money.
Now, we don't use it to back our currency anymore, which has led to massive inflation. But how is Bitcoin the solution for that when Bitcoin itself is valued in the very dollars it wants to replace?
This is like super, super, super convoluted reasoning. Like I don't. This is like he thinks he's playing 4D chess, but he's playing he's playing on a one-dimensional. He's playing in a two-dimensional space. He's playing checkers here. How is it that Bitcoin? I don't even. So again, Bitcoin is not going to replace fiat currencies. So I don't think that's going to happen. Let me just go back. I just want to get his claim, his question here, his rhetorical question.
But how is Bitcoin the solution for that when Bitcoin itself is just a backing of currency? Now, we don't use it to back our currency anymore, which has led to massive inflation. But how is Bitcoin the solution for that when Bitcoin itself is valued in the very dollars it wants to replace? Why?
So he's saying there's massive inflation that's gone on since gold was removed as a standard. But how is Bitcoin going to address inflation when it is valued in fiat dollars? So just to back up, gold was also valued in fiat dollars as well. Like we talk about the pound of gold or a gram of gold being worth X amount, and we talked about that 100 years ago and 1,000 years ago, and we're talking about that now. So it's confusing to me what he's saying. I will address the question though. So how would being on a hard standard, and I'm not going to distinguish here between gold and Bitcoin, it's the same reasoning. How would being on a hard standard protect against inflation? It would disable nation states from creating fiat basically out of thin air because it would always have to be backed by something that has proof of work. What do I mean by that? If you said that money only had value because it was tradable and able to be settled into a hard currency, then what you're doing is you're limiting your capacity to create new currency because those hard currencies have a proof of work system. In the system of gold, it's mining the gold, which is energy intensive, and consequently, there's only about a 2% increase in gold supplies per year. So gold is inflationary. It doesn't solve inflation perfectly, although it's a desirable type of inflation. Economic theory usually describes that some low amount of inflation is actually healthy, as it allows for more liquidity and more turnover of the economy, churning of the economy. The same thing with Bitcoin. There's a lot of effort that has to be done, computational effort in this point, in order to create a Bitcoin. And so if you only allow fiat currency to be made, insofar as it's backed by these hard assets, you're guaranteed that you've spent a lot of energy up front before you produce the money. Our current system is very inflationary for the reason that money is created as debt. This inverts the proof of work system. This means instead of saying, I've got this money, which is an abstraction, a representation of some effort that was done over here. So I'm trading your effort for my effort. We're doing a switch. Instead, what fiat is saying is, you're going to put in no effort today, but you're going to put it in tomorrow as you pay off this debt. And I'm going to put in no effort today because I'm just going to create the money. So I'm just going to create the money. There's no effortfulness backing it. I'll give it to you, and you'll have to back the effortfulness with your own effort plus interest. These are different systems ideologically, and the distinction is between a hard asset that has some sort of bounding effect on your ability to create money, to create the abstraction, the currency, or a system where there is no bounding like that necessarily. Fiat usually is not anyone can produce money at any point in time, but there definitely sure as fuck has happened in 2008 as well as 2020, the pandemic.
How was Bitcoin created? It was created originally to keep transactions away from the government. Guys, do you think the government's ever going to allow that? If the US government,
This argument's been made since 2013. Let me just make his argument even stronger for him. The first major use of crypto as an application that was using crypto, was the Silk Road. It was for degenerate. It was for prostitutes and drugs and all sorts of deviant things. Furthermore, some of the biggest scams today, like cyber scams today, like WannaCry, the one that affected the UK healthcare system massively and computers around the world, demand Bitcoin as ransom. Bitcoin has been a nuisance in many ways because it fundamentally allows people to do final settlement digitally without any sort of interfering organization like PayPal or the SWIFT network for banks or any sort of other constraints, basically immediately. Even though all of this has been true about Bitcoin, it hasn't been stopped yet. And I think one of the other things, so I'm going to just put that aside, Bitcoin has been used for the majority of its time as an underground type thing. And it hasn't been stopped because it can't be stopped. I think he's missing that idea. I've talked to a lot of people about this, like the government will never allow it. First of all, it can't be stopped. Let's put that aside. The second thing is, these people who make this argument, including him in this conversation, he doesn't understand game theory. If anyone's played the game like Settlers of Catan, you trade resources with each other, you understand that if you don't engage in any trading, if you just say, I'm not going to trade with anyone because when I trade with anyone, I make their position a little bit better, so I'm not going to trade, but everyone else does the trading, you end up shooting yourself in the foot. Like it's impossible to win the fucking game. You can't win the game. So governments are in a collective action problem right now, where they might want to continue with their own fiat system. They don't want to be limited by gold standard. They don't want to be limited by Bitcoin standard. They don't want to have limitations. But other countries might have different thoughts. The BRICS nations right now, including Russia. I mean, this news piece just came out, so I'm so surprised that he hasn't been doing his research essentially. Vladimir Putin said, crypto's unstoppable, the first point I made, and they've regulated and they're looking into using it to deny US sanctions. The United States is not the entire world. I'm sorry, American people, the fucking United States is not the whole planet. It's a very important nation, culturally, economically, politically, militarily, very important nation. And you can make an argument it's the most important nation, but it's not. It's not fucking the only nation. It's 26% of the global GDP. It's not the whole thing. If everyone else decides they're going to get off the US dollar and go into Bitcoin, America is going to shoot itself in the foot by not enabling that. I don't think these people understand that. This is called game theory. You can make action in game theory. You can make actions that seemingly are optimal for you and your use cases, but in pursuing those actions, you make things suboptimal for yourself and other people, and as a result, they choose to defect from you. I don't think it's that complicated, but we'll see.
Ever thought that people were getting away with defrauding them by using Bitcoin? All the governments do is say, Bitcoin's gone. It's done.
I think many governments have wanted to do that. They simply can't get it done because it's not possible. So I don't know why he's saying this. Again, if anything, the history of Bitcoin has been one where governments would be happy to get rid of it if they could have. They're having a hard time. And even though China has banned it, I'm confident that there are still citizens who have found a way to use Bitcoin. And in fact, just to add to this point, China banned it because they recognized exactly what he said. This is a threat to our authoritarian dominance of the country, the CCP. We don't want to put our value on a network that's decentralized, or maybe it's a Western scam, who knows? Let's ban it. And they had all the mining there. They shot themselves in the foot because they would have had a lead in an economy now with the miners owning Bitcoin. The Bitcoin keeps going up. They excommunicated it, got it out of the country for the most part. They didn't fully shut down. And now, even though they're dominating Hong Kong has opened up ETFs for ETH and Bitcoin. That has not gone on without the CCP noticing. They don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. We are seeing this. So this is not just me saying that. We are seeing that they've banned it, yet one of their strongest allies, Russia, is cozying it up to it. And they've allowed Hong Kong, a place that they've fully dominated over the past 10 years now, slowly tightening their stranglehold on the economics and the politics of that place, has opened up to Bitcoin. I mean, this is not me speculating. A powerful government has tried to ban it. 8 years have passed. 6 years have passed. And they're already starting to become wishy-washy on that. They're starting to renege some of their positions. And I think the reason why is because you cannot stop it. You can't fucking stop it. He doesn't understand this because he thinks you're just trying to stop, digital art pieces and some bullshit internet money. But if you think about it fundamentally as a solution to many other countries' problems with fiat currency and with the global system that is the US dollar, if you understand Bitcoin for what it is, which he does not, you will easily see that my case is valid. China has wanted to stop it. They're a very powerful nation. Technologically, they've got the Chinese firewall. They know how to prohibit things online to a really high degree. They're not able to do it. And we're going to see within the next 6 years, maybe it'll take another cycle, 6 years, 8 years, we will see China fully renege on its position if Bitcoin continues to grow, and I think it will. So that's a prediction from me.
Another thing that's interesting, whenever I hear people talk about the merits of Bitcoin, I say, great, tell me how you value Bitcoin. And they list all these things about Bitcoin.
It would be nice if you listed them, though, so we can go over them.
And I say, okay, you said a lot of qualitative things, which is wonderful.
Okay.
Now let's change the price of Bitcoin by adding 2 zeros. Are all your statements still true? Yes, they are. Okay, let's take 3 zeros away. Are all your statements still true? Yes. It's not an investment.
Yeah, I guess this is the reason why people are saying this, and I think he's not understanding again, it's gone from pennies to $100,000. If you explain it as magical internet money, it's not going to make sense to you. If you explain it as being a fundamental change in how we store economic energy and how we're going back to, just like the gold standard, a proof of work standard where we can store our money in a way that isn't inflatable through fiat currencies. If you explain Bitcoin as a reaction to 2008, the financial crisis, the meltdown of the risk taking with fractional reserve banking and rehypothecation, and you talk about Bitcoin as final settlement, direct ownership of your cash and your economic value. If you talk about it that way, why are people saying if you can add two zeros and go up? Because if you think about it, what I would imagine is appropriately, and again, why am I'm very confident that this is the appropriate way to talk about it because it's gone from worth nothing to $100,000. He's going to say it's the greater fool theory. There's more and more idiots in the world. You know, it goes up to $10 because there's fucking idiots in the world. It's $100. They're fucking idiots. There's always 10 times more the fucking idiots in the world. We just keep growing. You know, the idea is viral and people are stupid. They love losing their money. You know, that's what he's saying. I'm saying there's an actual fundamental ideology about Bitcoin, something that's actually going on here. It actually addresses fundamental issues, millennia long standing issues with ownership, digital scarcity, which is not millennia long, trust, fiat currency, hard money, abstraction of economic energy. He's not appreciating that. If you talk about Bitcoin the way that I'm talking about it, what you tend to do, which I think is correct, is to look at the entire net worth of all assets on the planet. You start looking at the net worth of all fiat currencies. You start looking at the net worth of gold at 17 trillion American dollars. And so you start to price Bitcoin accordingly. And you can start adding some zeros and say, yes, based off of this understanding of money, economic energy, trust, government debt, and how Bitcoin relates to all of this, which I'm trying to make clear, and I have other videos that do, then yes, you can add a few fucking zeros onto that and it would still be very valid because that's actually the direction Bitcoin is going. It's going to go to an impossible place, $100,000. Who would have thought? This is insane. I don't understand Bitcoin at all, and I've done no research on this, and I've done no research on monetary theory. So given that, this is insane. And smart people who invest well in the past, who by his own admission is going to talk about how they didn't even understand tech stocks, right? Because it was like, I don't know what this is, but now they're warming up to it. It took them 30 years. These people, these laggards, and even investing in, I don't know, the NASDAQ, are the ones who are telling you that it's worth nothing. I don't think that these people, just to be clear, I don't think these different individuals, and Warren Buffett, Jamie Dimon, I actually don't think that they've done deep philosophical thinking on the nature of money. It is not a requirement. Let me just put it this way. It's not a requirement for you to kill it in life to do deep fundamental understanding. You can live an absolute amazing life and do very well and not understand how neuronal connections are made. You don't have to understand action potentials. You don't have to understand junctions within the cells. You don't have to understand how magnesium, potassium, calcium play a role in muscles. You don't have to understand shit to do way better. And there's people who do understand this, and they're not great athletes. And there's people who don't understand it at all, and they're sports athletes, and they're killing it. I'm just trying to make this clear. You don't need to have a theory of money fundamentally what it is, just like you don't have to have a theory about the human mind and how muscles work to kill it in different avenues of life. This is absolutely true. It's clear as day to me. So these people who are famous and really good athletes, they're really good investors. If they've done no research on physiology in the human body and how how action potentials turn into chemical signals, why do I have to listen to them on this if they were to talk about that theory all of a sudden? They're not experts in it. They're not experts in the theory of money, in the philosophy of money, which is fundamentally what Bitcoin is addressing. That's the level at which you're dealing with valuation of Bitcoin.
Then I look at a company like Microsoft and I name all the reasons why it could be a good or bad investment. If I add two zeros to it, it becomes a bad investment immediately. Those statements aren't all true. If I take two zeros away, those statements are even better. But with Bitcoin, as much as I hear people say the fundamentals there, there's limited supply. Guys, I can take a dump in a bag. It's the only bag of my feces in the entire world. Does it make it valuable?
I want I want to ask, this is pun intended, how liquid is your shit, right? Like, but how many sellers can you find to buy it? Can you transmit it digitally online? Is there a proof of work other than that you ate, a sandwich from Subway and took a shit? Is there a proof of work behind that? Like, why this is he's fundamentally missing the points that I made about the Bitcoin network and why it's valuable in talking about his shit. It's not just that it is rare. It's not that just there's a limited supply. Lynn Alden in her book Broken Money clearly states meteorites are more rare. Meteorites are a more rare material than gold, but they're not necessarily more sought after than gold, and they're not necessarily going to replace the global financial system because of gold. Well, why is this? It's because there's not enough meteorites. There's not enough liquidity in that system to support an entire global ecosystem and economy. And furthermore, they're not divisible in the ways, but gold is. Gold is more, there's more gold, and it can be melted down. Well, Bitcoin's 21 million, but the Satoshis, it's like 100 quadrillion. The actual base level of Bitcoin is Satoshis. They're actually, Bitcoin itself is merely an abstraction. It's a short of hand because Satoshis are worth so little. Instead of saying, well, I'm going to purchase this from you for, this many Satoshis, you can just say half a Bitcoin, right? I don't think he understands that either, because I don't think he's done his research. I don't think he understands the base level denomination on the Bitcoin network is actually Satoshis, and that Bitcoin is merely an abstraction on that.
Not necessarily, because you have to have a use for that. And you might sit there and say, Paul, you're missing it. There's so much use for Bitcoin. Guys, I own 8 businesses upstairs. I own 1,000 apartments. I own luxury rentals around the world.
It's very condescending too. Like, he's saying, and I've had people talk to me like this in different areas in life every once in a while, and I'm sure you have too to some extent. It's fucking infuriating. Okay, you're an expert at this and this other thing, but have you done your research on this? Why the fuck should I have to believe you on this? Okay, I've made a lot of money. Okay, so but what does that have to do with the philosophy of money? Do you understand proto monies and proto banking? Do you understand why gold's valuable? It's not apparent.
Not one time ever in all of these things I've done has anybody said to me, Paul, do you accept Bitcoin? Not once. Now, the internet. There was a lot of fraud and speculation.
Yeah, well, look, not a lot of people relatively have a Bitcoin, have a lot of Bitcoin overall. And as the price is going up, that's going to get worse and worse. It's like the Pareto principle. 80% of the entire network's value will be captured by 20% of the wallets and participants on it. That's the same way that fiat currency works and how basically everything on this planet works. If you want Bitcoin to become more available, you have to allow governments to regulate it, which is something that he's going to claim is against the ideology of Bitcoin being an anti-government thing. But this is in a way untrue. Like, you need government regulation in order for Bitcoin to grow. So in one case, he's going to say, well, I can't use it to buy anything and no one's using it. Well, it's not regulated enough, and people are being told that it's garbage. Like, they're being told to stay away from it. So even though it's going up and up and up in value, people still aren't putting into time and effort to learn about it because they've been so assuredly told by people like this individual and by the news media for the past 15 years that it's bullshit and they shouldn't have to learn about it, that all it is speculation. So yes, no one's coming to you with Bitcoin and trying to settle a transaction in Bitcoin. First of all, you're not set up for it, and you don't like it, and they don't like it either. Almost no one likes it relatively on the planet. Relatively speaking, only 10% of the planet or less is pro Bitcoin. It's probably more like 5. So everyone I talk to is like, it's a scam. Oh, you're into that. Oh my God. Of course, no one's asking you to pay in Bitcoin. It's all bullshit. they all think about it the same way you do. So I don't, it's like, why are you why would you bring that out as a point? They already agree with your point. So it's kind of, it's a circular reasoning essentially.
On the internet didn't mean the internet was a fraud. And that's why I always say crypto in its current essence will not succeed. It could change. If the US government came out and said, we're making Bitcoin our official currency, but my guess is then that the price of the currency will still drop in the long run. Why? Because
everyone's said that though. 14 years, like the data, you can speculate on this and you can make a good case for why you think, Bitcoin's not going to be there in the long run, right? You can always, But the data that's come back so far, like if you think about it from his perspective, based on all the things he said, there's no intrinsic value. No one uses it. The governments will never allow it. Um, all it is scams. You would have expected that if that's true of this thing over a 15-year period, and by the way, a lot of people get caught up in these scams. A lot of people who are join crypto lose their money, get washed out, get their wallet hacked. You would expect that if what he is saying is true about Bitcoin, it has always been true about Bitcoin, there's never been any value, it's all about scams, the government can stop it at any time, it would have been fucking stopped by now. Like, he's not, I don't know how much more clear I can make this. This is critical thinking 101. If what you are saying is true about Bitcoin, why would it not have been, why would it not have applied? And when it crashed, as it has many times, why would it come back? You're missing something in your fucking theory. You're missing something. Why don't you understand this? These people are, I don't know. In some ways, I'm like, it doesn't make sense. His own reasoning doesn't make sense.
It has to equate out, and there's too much euphoria around it. There's too much fraud right now. Look at the people around you who love crypto. If you've been around investing for a long time, these are the people who always get burned. Let's look at some of the problems with this early adaptation of Bitcoin. In 2022, FTX raised over $1.8 billion from investors, promising safety and transparency. Behind the scenes, founder Sam Bankman-Fried.
It's because it's not regulated. It's because it's not regulated. It's because it's not regulated, and people are people, and people have been doing this for millennia, and they'll keep fucking doing it. This is why crypto actually could use regulation. And all the crypto agencies that are not trying to be fraudulent, Coinbase, Kraken, Binance, I think, is asking for this, even though they are not, I don't think that they're honest actors in the space overall. They are asking, Gemini, they're asking for regulation. They're asking for regulation so that clients who are interested in Bitcoin, the same people who said are not interested in Bitcoin, haven't used it because they don't have an on-ramp for it, because they don't have a way to custody it, because they don't have a way to get it insured. The same people, some group of the same people, some fraction of the people that you're saying don't want to do anything to do with Bitcoin. They never asked once for Bitcoin. They've never tried to buy anything from you with Bitcoin. Those same people, some fraction of them, will end up using Bitcoin if it's regulated. And the exchanges know this, and they're trying to get it done. They're trying to get it done. And you point at Sam Bankman-Fried, a huckster and a scam artist who opened up a crypto business in the Bahamas as an example here. And then you're going to tell me, by the way, the crypto people should never allow for, it's antagonistic towards the whole idea of crypto and Bitcoin that government start regulating.
Funneled customer funds to his trading firm, Alameda Research. The result? A bankruptcy that temporarily wiped out billions in customer funds, according to the SEC. Now, they were all made whole at some point.
This is an insane admission that he's making, like an insane factual reporting. He's both saying, and I've seen Snapjack's story because the new data's come in. It is both a horrible scam. Look what happened. And also, by the way, Bitcoin's gone up so much by now that they're able to make everyone whole. They're making everyone whole at the price that they went bankrupt, which is like literally in the dead cold bear market. So people are being made whole, but they're being made whole with the shittiest short-term price that Bitcoin's had in the past 4 years, right? So it is kind of bullshit, but they're being made whole. But listen to what he's saying again. There was a scam. There was a bunch of money wasted and lost. And yet, because crypto has fundamentally gone up so fucking much, they were able to actually pay back everyone. That's how strong crypto and resilient crypto and Bitcoin has been. I can't believe he doesn't see this as an ironic part of what he's saying.
But it took a long time, and it took a rebound of Bitcoin's prices for that to happen. In 2023, Binance and its CEO, CZ, who claimed to be the adult in the room, pled guilty.
And I've never heard anyone say Binance, like bidet. I've only ever heard it Binance, but this is just semantics again, or pronunciation. Just let it go.
To federal charges of money laundering and failing to register as a money transmitter. Guys, if it's supposed to be under the radar and away from government control, why are these things happen? The Department of Justice is...
Who's saying Who is saying, like, this is again a scapegoating, basically? Who is saying that? Who? All the crypto, he's going to later claim all the crypto exchanges are trying to get regulation. So what is it? Like, who's the people who are in crypto for the most part, are welcoming towards regulation because it's going to grow the industry and it's going to grow their bags. They're going to make money. There is some part of the OG crypto anarchists, the libertarian anarchists, who don't want any government intervention. That's not going to happen. It's clear. Are you just talking about those people? You're talking about a smaller subset of Bitcoiners as being represented the whole thing. Look at Michael Saylor. He wants regulation. This is one of the biggest. He and MicroStrategy are one of the biggest owners of Bitcoin. They want it to be regulated. Who are we talking about here?
$4 billion penalty marked one of the largest in.
I think he's the Bitcoin network in its current configuration, which for the most part hasn't changed since launching. There's been upgrades to it. But overall, relatively speaking, the configuration of what it's doing, the peer-to-peer network transmission, that's not going to change with regulation. That's not going to change. You're still going to get final settlement between two individuals in a short period of time for a relatively nominal fee, where you could send $1 million, even $100 million, and no one can stop you. The governments are not going to be able to stop that because you'd have to own an enormous amount of computational power to regulate that on the Bitcoin network. That's the whole reason why it works. It's because it's so damning, it's so prohibitive, the CPU cost and energy cost to join the network and try to skew the network in a way to pervert the network. This is why it's untouchable. This is why the network itself cannot be mutated. That's the whole point around Bitcoin. That's the whole point about the limited supply. That's not going to change with regulation. So if you want to be anonymous or semi-anonymous with Bitcoin, or you really want anonymity, you go to the privacy coins. But we're talking about Bitcoin now. You can create a new wallet. You can move value through it. You can do that without requesting permission anywhere in the world, 24/7, at any denomination of value you'd like. That's a new technology the world's never seen. That's not going to change with regulation. Regulation can't change that. I'm literally telling you the reason why Bitcoin is valuable and why BlackRock and other people are in there is precisely because these things about the network cannot change. The regulation, on the other hand, is going to now allow financialization around that. It's like this little core piece of the candy, and we're going to wrap it inside of chocolate, inside of marshmallow, all these other things. We're going to wrap it. And you could say that wrapping perverts the flavor. I really like the caramelized core flavor, and all this other shit's bullshit, and it's going to cause systemic risk in a system, which it very well could. I'm all for that kind of critique of Bitcoin financialization and institutionalization. But none of it's going to change the core. The core is still going to be that caramel core. I don't think he understands this.
U.S. history. And remember, guys, this led to everyone requesting that the government regulate crypto, which absolutely melted my brain. Crypto was created to avoid all the government scrutiny, all these things to avoid government interaction. And then the crypto people said, please come save.
Oh fuck, man. There's two things going on. First, he's saying that if something's created for a certain reason, if people change their mind while they use it, what is it? It invalidates the whole thing? This doesn't make any sense. I don't know what analogy. It's almost like the computers were built with a certain thought process in mind. We're going to use computers for these reasons. People start using them for other reasons. It invalidates the computers or something? I don't understand. The reasoning here, I've never agree with this type of reasoning. You know, the guy who came up with the term alpha males studying wolves, he eventually reneged on his idea and redacted it and said, you know what, there aren't actually alpha wolves in the wolf colonies I was studying. A bunch of people said, therefore, this idea of being alpha, of having some organism, specifically a male, usually in a group that stands out and leads and takes charge of certain things, and also it protects and also is there to resolve disputes. The idea of an alpha is therefore thrown out because the initial creation of the idea was found to be bunk. This is illogical. Someone can actually can describe a phenomenon that actually matches really well to other things in the world, misdescribe it, create it, and misunderstand what they were seeing. And yet we still look out into the world and go, oh, but this idea of alpha really fits in with all these other things. He's saying that can't happen, that if the initial creation was not pure, then the whole thing is bankrupt. I don't think that this is how human civilization has worked at all. So this is the first problem. The second problem is, again, already what I just mentioned. Institutionalization will allow for financialization. What I mean by financialization is like the ETFs. You can start building things inside the regular financial system. You can start creating organizations that loan out Bitcoin, that give interest on loaned out Bitcoin. You can start creating these layers of abstractions on top of a network. In this case, the Bitcoin network. You can do that, and that doesn't at all change the permissionlessness, relative anonymity, and power of the Bitcoin network and the security of it. It doesn't change it. I don't know what he's saying.
Save us. Guys, this is proof that the world of crypto is running around with their heads cut off.
No, it's proof that you don't understand critical thinking. That's what it's proof of. It's proof of, and your cockiness in this just shows that you haven't thought this through enough. And you obviously haven't researched crypto enough.
I have no idea what they want.
You have no idea what you're talking about.
It's purely a speculative asset. It generates nothing, just like artwork. But at least with artwork, I cannot go create another Van Gogh. And you might sit there and say, well, there's only 21 million Bitcoins allowed. Okay. But guys, it's coding. At some point, if they need to make more crypto, they'll figure out a way. More Bitcoin. And if they don't, they're going to create more and more cryptocurrencies, which is what's happened over time.
Right. So this is a failure of. You can't both make the argument that because Bitcoin is code, it can be reproduced and forked, which it has been. You don't know that word because you haven't studied it enough. Bitcoin literally has been forked. Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Doge is not a fork, but they took the code of Bitcoin and it's another proof of work network. They made it into a meme. You don't know this because you haven't looked into it. But you can't say that code is cheap and it can be reproduced. Therefore, Bitcoin's not valuable. Oh, and by the way, that's been done 100,000 times. And not understand that it's happened. Your existential risk factor here that it can be replicated has already happened. Literally, the Bitcoin network has been forked, the actual network, into a competing network that thought it could overtake it called Bitcoin Cash. It's literally happened, and it hasn't affected the price of Bitcoin. It's only gone up. This is how informed he is. You can't announce that there's a reason that's an existential threat to Bitcoin, that people could eventually do this thing and that it would very much affect the price. And then also recount the fact that it has happened many times and not understand that it's therefore you were wrong about demarking it as an existential threat.
At one point, there were over 20,000 cryptocurrencies out there. In 2023, the FBI reported that Americans lost $5.6 billion to crypto scams alone, with investment fraud accounting for $3.96 billion of those.
I just want to say, and I'll always say this, that's a huge problem for crypto. You know, it might help if it's regulated. If you look up someone like the Crypto King, dickhead from Ontario, who ended up taking a lot of people's money, saying that they're going to make quick money. Totally, people are desperate to get into crypto partly because they're foolish, to be fair, of course, but partly because the cost of living is so high, and they feel like they need to make a quick win, and so gambling has gone way up, lottery has gone up, and so crypto's going up as well, and people are getting taken advantage of. Part of the reason is because you don't have companies who are regulated in these various countries, who have clear regulation from the government, who are able to set up shop and offer crypto services to individuals. Instead, they're going online, they're doing word of mouth, they're finding shit on Twitter, and they're getting scammed. This is why we need regulation in the space.
Losses. The real cost of Bitcoin isn't just in losses, it's in the lives it disrupts. The FBI highlights scams like pig butchering, where victims are groomed to invest their life savings into fake crypto platforms. In 2023,
This is a scam problem though. It's not like crypto isn't it's almost like, guns don't kill people. I mean, the crypto is like the gun. It needs to be regulated like guns do. But in the end, people are going to find a way to hurt other people, right? Like we need to regulate guns and not have fucking everyone have guns all the time. Like the States it's fucking insane. But at the same point in time, you can't assert that the guns are the reason why people are scamming each other and killing people. People have found a way to kill each other before guns existed. Which one are we talking about? Are we talking about the guns? Are we talking about crypto, which is helping to facilitate people getting settlement from their scams? Or are we talking about the fact that people just scam each other, which has been happening for millennia, till time untold?
retirees lost over 1.6 billion to crypto fraud, making the most targeted demographic. Crypto's decentralized nature makes it an easy playground for criminals, from hackers to scammers. Now, Bitcoin's
Why doesn't the government just stop it then? Didn't you admit that the government could just put an end to it, or they just don't give a fuck? They don't give a fuck about the biggest voting bloc in the country, the baby boomers. They're just going to let them wither away and get scammed. Why doesn't if the government's so strong, why don't they stop non-crypto scams? Why don't they stop the phone scams? Why don't they stop the automated calls that you get? If the government's able to stop these technologies, why is there an issue with India scam call centers? Why is there an issue at all? Shouldn't they be able to stop it? Because they can't. They can't stop it. They don't have the resources. These people keep popping up all over the place. It's impossible, and they don't have the sovereign state ability, the legislative ability to go to another country and stop it. It's very complicated. Crypto is even more complicated. It's a decentralized network of computers. It would be very, very hard to stop it. And also, to some extent, and I hate to break it to you, there is rule of law in some countries. And what we've seen from the United States, in particular, is that the court system is looking at what the SEC has tried to do with crypto, and they've overruled it. They've said that their Wells notices and their lawsuits are not constitutionally valid. So you've got legal academics who have looked into what Bitcoin means, and they're saying if it's decentralized enough, this is not a security, this is a commodity, and you cannot sue it in the same ways that you would like to, because there is rule of law, and there's people who have looked into what the fuck this shit is. After a lawsuit has started, there's been a bunch of non-crypto people, justices and lawyers, attorneys, who have gone in now and gone with a fine-tooth comb. And in the end, high-ranking district courts around the United States have pretty much unanimously said you can't be suing it like a company. You can't stop it in the ways that you would like to, willy-nilly, to the US government. The data's already come in. This is why I'm shocked. Like we've been through a lot of this. Like he's not thinking well, his reasoning is bad, and he's simply oblivious of the facts. And yet he's so fucking cocky in his presentation. It's astounding.
Decentralized nature is often celebrated as a technological breakthrough, but it's also made crypto a prime tool for criminal activity. And by the way, that is going away. There is no way the US government, who owns crypto, is going to allow crypto to have transactions without them knowing about it. You might not remember, but there was a time when crypto was being promoted as tax-free. You can sell your gains, and guess what the IRS did? No. If that's an asset, we want our change.
So this is the thing too. It's like, so I appreciate what he's saying. Okay, so we're going to lose the anonymity of Bitcoin, which again, there's a bunch of other ways inside of a crypto system to still remain anonymous. So Bitcoin's not the only thing that you would need to use for that. But let's say, but then like, what does he say? There's the previous people had said this is never going to be allowed because it's anonymous. The government will stop it. Now he's saying the government's going to allow it. Like even he's saying the government's going to stop it. But then he's saying the government will allow it because they're going to make sure that it's not anonymous. I don't understand what you're saying here. Like, is the government going to stop it, and it's a threat because it's anonymous, or can the government tax it and they're not going to stop it, and they're going to make it magically not anonymous somehow?
We want our cut. Between 2017 and 2021, Binance, the world's largest cryptocurrency
Finance.
exchange, processed over $2 billion in transactions linked to illicit activities, including drug sales, investment frauds, and cyber attacks. One notable example.
Hey, check out what TD Bank did. Largest bank recently, as of this year, that got sued and admitted to money laundering. The biggest case admitted by a bank in America. It's a Canadian-led bank, I think, but largest bank operating in America ever to confess to money laundering. And I think it was over 2.3 billion. But are we talking about that? I mean, I'm not saying that therefore Bitcoin's absolved of this and Binance is absolved. Everyone who commits fraud should be tried to the highest extent of the law. What I'm also saying is the financial system itself is broken. And I'm not here to stand around and say it's okay if crypto organizations do it. What I'm saying is it's not okay if anyone does it. But why don't we point it all out all at once right now, as we're pointing out with crypto?
Example involved North Korea's Lazarus hacking group, which laundered millions in stolen funds through the exchange. This kind of criminal exploitation is not an isolated issue. Bitcoin ATMs have emerged as a new tool for scammers. Fraudsters impersonate government officials or claim fake emergencies, pressuring victims to deposit money into Bitcoin ATMs, which are then transferred directly to scammers' wallets. Now, guys, you're going to sit there going, Paul, everybody has scams. Cash has scams. You're right. But there's this new cryptocurrency, this new way of giving money.
You're admitting, this is the thing as well, you're admitting the usefulness when you describe this. Is it useless and it's redundant and we can use gold and fiat? Why the fuck do we need this convoluted energy wasting system? Or is there at least one use case, which is that scammers and bad actors have found a use for this? This is actually useful to have final settlement without the need, peer-to-peer, without the need for organizations and governments involved in a relatively anonymous way. Like, is it useful or is it not? And if you go, Adam, okay, well, you're admitting that the only use is no. What I am saying is that we can see clearly that there is a use case. That if you put people in a situation where they need certain factors to be true about their money system, Bitcoin is really fucking useful. Now, if we don't have a large enough imagination, we say, well, hackers, scammers are using it because they have this and that and this other profile. And they're the only people in the fucking world who'd be interested. But I don't think that's true. I think that there's other people with money, other nation states who have an interest in those factors. Avoiding the regular financial system, not having to use a bank, self-custody, relative anonymity. And I think the reason why it's at 100,000 right now, and why we're getting different nation states coming in and saying we're decriminalizing it, or the nation state is actually mining this shit, or we're talking about setting up a Federal Reserve, I think it's because they understand this. And I think he doesn't. And I think many people don't understand it. It's a fucking problem for this conversation. It is such a fucking problem for this conversation.
Do you think the government's going to allow that to happen in even more common fashion? Look at cash, for example. If you go to a bank and you open an account, and in any given year you deposit or withdraw in excess of $10,000, you have to sign for it. You have to make a report to the IRS about this. That's how the government watches you. So you think they're just going to let you do whatever you want with crypto without any regulation whatsoever? You're out of your mind.
This is why people have been asking for regulation. What are you saying? But then you're saying, which of course it's going to be regulated. The people in crypto are actually asking for the regulation. And then you're saying, oh, but the Bitcoin people, they should never ask for regulation. The whole idea was that it would never be regulated. This is so convoluted how he's arguing. The rhetoric here is really stupid. It's really fucking dumb.
The government does not want competition. Almost every crypto company.
Yeah. And hey, maybe that's a problem, Space. Maybe that's a problem for money, for the philosophy of money, that the government wants just like the government wants to have a monopoly on violence, which some people in the States, I wouldn't be one of them, is saying, everyone needs the right to bear arms so we can resist the government. And maybe the government having a monopoly on violence and it needs to be continually regulated and watched after so that it doesn't betray that trust and use violence against its own citizens, that it doesn't militarize its own police forces. Maybe that problem is also true in the economic realm. Could it be? Could it be that maybe it's a fucking problem that a large institution that governs the entire body politics and citizens might have too much power when it comes to finances? It might have enabled itself to be able to write blank checks after going off the gold standard and no longer requiring proof of work for the money that it creates? Could it create a system where it incentivizes going into debt, where asset prices go through the fucking roof, and where new creation of money due to the Cantillon effect is distributed in unequal ways throughout the society, creating a growing wealth gap? Could that be a fucking problem? And if it is, if there's something that could possibly solve it or address that problem to some degree, maybe it's worth something. Maybe it's worth something, but it can't be because Bitcoin is inherently valueless and we all know it's worth nothing. I don't understand. I don't understand the reasoning. But again, I think when it comes to this video or many other people, they haven't looked into this shit at all. I'm not saying I'm an expert on monetary theory, but what I'm saying is I've looked into it. I've looked into it a bit, and I've put in the effort to try to understand. Bitcoin's gone from $0 to $100,000. Maybe there's a fucking reason for that. Let me do my research. Let me go ask ChatGPT. Let me go read a book or two. I'm not an expert on economic theory, but I've done some research. This guy, it seems like he's done none.
Has been implicated in some sort of fraud or some sort of SEC investigation, nearly all of them. In addition, when you see assets being promoted by celebrities, is that really an investment? How often you see companies out there making commercials for Berkshire Hathaway? How often you see Microsoft and those guys making commercials for buy our stock? But celebrities like Matt Damon, Tom Brady, Kim Kardashian have all pushed Bitcoin and been sued for it, making it feel legitimate to the mass.
They push Bitcoin. They pushed a network. They pushed a decentralized network that they don't own a stake in. Did they own a mining farm for Bitcoin? How are they pushing Bitcoin? Are you suggesting that they owned like a large amount of Bitcoin and they were like trying to single-handedly get other people to buy into the Bitcoin network and then they could dunk on them? I think he means to say that they were hired by FTX and various exchanges. Or they've started their own meme coin projects, which is them trying to rug pull the community. But Bitcoin? They've been promoting Bitcoin, not an exchange that has Bitcoin, like, hey, you can buy Bitcoin on this exchange, just the Bitcoin network. Or maybe he's confused. Maybe he doesn't actually know how to talk about this properly.
Masses. FTX, Crypto.com, these guys have even sponsored sports arenas and ran ads featuring A-list stars. But these endorsements weren't about financial advice. They're about lining their pockets and doing more hype to promote the price. The history of Bitcoin has obviously been riddled with rises and crashes. Guys, is that what you want to see from a currency that is the fundamental backbone of the economy that everybody thinks it is?
I wouldn't want that to happen. So I wouldn't want there to be oil crashes in the 80s, and I wouldn't want there to be the 2008 financial crisis, and I wouldn't want there to be the fallout of the economic policy from COVID. I definitely wouldn't want that happening. Fuck Bitcoin because it's caused all of the. Oh wait, it didn't cause all those things, did it? Well, I definitely wouldn't want the fundamental backbone of the economy as being a system that increases the wealth gap exponentially and taxes all the middle class owners and people who don't have the financial savvy and tax instruments to hold their value outside of the average taxation. I wouldn't want to have a currency where Warren Buffett is saying, "Hey, I should be liable to more taxes. My secretary pays more personal income tax than I do." I wouldn't want but Bitcoin's caught. Wait, oh, Bitcoin didn't cause that. That's the current fiat system that we have. Well, Bitcoin caused, during the 1970s and late 1960s, they were printing out way too much Bitcoin, and so all the countries came together basically unanimously and started to do almost a bank run on the hard asset called Bitcoin in the United States, and that's when they stopped allowing a trade for their dollars, their US dollars, into Bitcoin. Oh wait, that was gold. They got off the gold standard because of the speculators. But anyways, Bitcoin's the problem. Bitcoin's the problem.
Come on, give me a break. In 2017, it hit a price of 14.4. In 2018, it hit almost $18,000 before crashing to the low 3,000s in 2019, and then rallying all the way to 60,000 in March of 2021, falling again down to the low 30s, recovering to 60,000 in October of 2021. Guys, the ride's been insane. But when you compare this to other assets Bitcoin is compared to, the price fluctuations simply don't occur. But just like,
I mean, first of all, the price fluctuations are really attractive for people who want to try to make money. If you need volatility in the market to make money. This is like if you want to do trading, first of all. I mean, so second of all, hey, you put your money in here, and it goes from $1,000 to $300. How do you feel? And then you wait a few years and it goes to $20,000. Well, how do you feel? And then it goes down again. It goes down to $6,000. Well, so you put in $1,000, and 7 years later, it's worth $6,000. How do you feel? But I don't feel too bad. I mean, what are you talking about? But it crashed down. On paper, it went up to 20,000 eventually and crashed down to 6. How do you feel? I don't know. It's only been 6 years. I got 100% returns each year. That's pretty good. What about if you put it? How about if you put it in at 20,000? Huh? You put it in at 20,000, and it crashed down. How do you feel about that? It crashed down to what? Crashed down to 5,000. Let's say 5,000. Crashed down to 5,000. How do you feel about that? Well, I feel pretty bad. And then it kept going. Like 2 years later, it was back to 20,000. and went all the way up to 70,000. I feel about that. I don't know. Feels pretty good. Put in 20, and 4 years later it's 70. That's not bad. Then it crashed down to below 20, went to 16. Okay, all right. Well, that's better than before. And then it went up to 100. What? I put in $20,000, and 6 years later it went to $100,000. Fuck, that's not bad. How do you feel? I don't feel too bad. I don't know. But if you're putting money into Bitcoin for short term because you're going to have surgery next year, and you need to pull out the money to pay for your cancer treatments, for oncology treatments, you're sending your kids to school, you probably don't do that. It's too volatile, like he's saying. But you're gonna park your money, you're gonna park your economic value into someplace, you're gonna put it into real estate, you can do that. Put it in stocks, you can do that. 26% return on the S&P 500 this year. By the way, probably caused somewhat by the devaluation of the US dollar. Probably it's not that the whole US economy got 26 times more effective, 26% more effective in 1 year period from the previous year. Probably some of that had to do with economic policy, quantitative easing, just saying, lowering of interest rates, just saying, could be part of it. But okay, goes up 26%, it's pretty good. Average returns to the stock market, 8%, 6% per year, 8% per year. Okay, it's not too bad. How long are you holding? Well, I'm going to hold for 10 years, 20 years. I'm putting this money away for that. Or you can put it into Bitcoin. You get 100% returns in a few years. Every 4 years, you can get a 600% return. How do you feel about that? It feels pretty fucking good. But what are we talking about here? What? People have different requirements for investing. You want to invest for short term and you need guaranteed money, do not go into crypto. Exactly what he's saying. But it's outrageous what it went up to here, went down. It's actually like you're proving the point for Bitcoin by talking about this. Proving the point. Bitcoin's a good place to put your money. It outcompetes any other asset right now. It's been doing that for the past 15 years. I can't guarantee you it's going to do that for the next 15 years. No one can guarantee that. But the risk to reward ratios have had fantastic. The amount of reward you can get relative to the risk as it becomes more and more institutionalized and accepted around the world, it seems pretty fucking good.
Every other thing in the world, When Bitcoin does well, the great stories follow. When Bitcoin does poorly, the bad stories follow. But what I have noticed is the correlation between Bitcoin and QQQ, a highly technologically driven value driver in the US economy. The bull case for Bitcoin, I believe, is best examined by following its most popular and accepted experts. And I put experts in quotes there, guys. Michael Saylor has made the base case for Bitcoin, stating that it'll account for 7% of global wealth, with each coin being worth $13 million by 2045. Guys, if you bought a piece of real estate that you wanted to be worth X amount of dollars, you know it has to generate every year in profit to do that. Stock, same thing. But to get to those levels would require 29% returns per year for the next 20 years. His bull case calls for almost 50.
The data that we have, the limited data that we have, this is one of my points I've been making. Given the limited data that we've had about the Bitcoin network and the price valuation, the price changes over the 15 years, would it not be reasonable to assume a 26% return per year, even that means lowering the velocity of price increase on the Bitcoin network from the previous 15 years? It means lowering it to a much more conservative state because it's grown way more than 26% per year. Would that, like, the data supports a positive outlook? Maybe not exactly what Michael Saylor is saying, I don't know, but it supports a positive outlook.
$50 million per coin and accounting for 22% of global wealth by 2045. But guys, remember, this has nothing to do with fundamentals. You might think it is. It is not. Stop convincing yourself otherwise. The best part is when I hear crypto people say they just don't understand. I don't hear Warren Buffett saying that. I don't see Howard Marks saying that. I don't hear any of the smartest investors who have the track record of doing so great over long periods of time. You know what they do? They teach. When I see on Twitter, oh, they just don't understand. What do we understand? That every investment's the present value of all future cash.
Well, I'm here to enlighten and educate you, and I'm sure you're going to appreciate it because you're not at all skeptical and full of self-importance and all. I'm sure you're going to just receive the information well and then go and do your own research and come back and look at this in an analytical way.
Cash flows, and Bitcoin has no cash flow. The dynamics that make up Bitcoin reaching these prices that Michael Saylor has talked about include a fixed supply of only 21 million coins, global accessibility, and resistance to censorship and manipulation, which will then lead Bitcoin.
Resistance to censorship and manipulation is what we have been testing for 15 years. And it's worked so far. As it's gotten bigger and it's become a bigger target for hacking, for people to subvert the network, for centralization, which is unfortunately happening and is an existential risk. If too many of the nodes become centralized on the network, it fundamentally erodes the security of the network. We've actually been testing this, though. That's my point. We've been testing it. We have been testing it. The data is coming back so far saying, well, looks good. It could have gone wrong in any of those 15 years. It really could. I don't mean to be facetious. If you're saying this is just some weird network and who knows, and the value of Bitcoin could change and they can add more Bitcoins to the network and who knows if it's really secure and there's no real use case for it. I'm telling you, it's as secure as fuck. It's got $2 trillion US dollars on it as an open source, open code network. Hasn't been hacked. It's retained that. Every data point suggests right now that it will continue to retain that because people have already tried as best they can to undermine the system and they have failed. Now, could someone figure out a way to do it tomorrow? In theory, it is a possibility. It's not impossible. But given the data that we have, it suggests that this will not happen anytime soon because it's already been battle tested for 15 years.
To become as valuable as gold, which would make it worth $13 trillion. Now, guys, this journey also includes a new group of buyers like asset managers, countries, major investors buying into Bitcoin. I think part of the reason, my personal opinion is, they just don't want to miss out because so many people are demanding it. Give the people what they want. Included in this mix are wealthy individuals with billionaires claiming it's common for billionaires to have 1% allocation of Bitcoin. Maybe so. Gold holds 3.9% of global wealth, and Bitcoin is just 0.35%. And if it grows to just 3%, still below gold, the market cap would be 20 trillion and push the price to 1 million per coin. But guys, again, there's no fundamental reason behind that. Just like there's no fundamental reason behind gold, yet we have thousands of years of data to show that gold has an ulterior use besides just being used as a
And just on this point, because I know Peter Schiff brought this up in a debate with Raoul Paul, how much of all of gold is used for jewelry and electronics and for its material properties? I think it's something to the tune of 10% or less than 10%. So it's not a notable amount. It's not an amount that would explain why gold has the market cap of $17 trillion and is 3% of world wealth. It wouldn't explain that.
backing for currencies. But what's amazing about all this is it's all these speculators who are just relying on other people to see the value. And I see that on Twitter all the time.
Yes, you're right. It's a lot of stupid people because the majority of people will never do their research. It's up to individuals to do their research. If you would like to critique the asset class, it is best for you to do your own research. It is not good for you to look at other idiots who are not doing their research, correctly identify that they haven't done their research, communicate with them and talk with them and see that there's no true critical thinking being done there, and then claim that the whole thing is bullshit. The majority of people the majority of people enjoy McDonald's. Okay, and they enjoy Taylor Swift. Okay, and they enjoy superhero movies. It's not on me to critique them, to tell them, hey, you're stupid for liking this shit. But it is on me to understand that the average person in any medium does relatively small amount of research. They don't have particular ability to appreciate nuanced flavors and nuanced artistic endeavors because that's the average person. If you apply that reasoning to Bitcoin, as you can do with anything, the average person who's into Bitcoin will never do a deep amount of research and will not be, on average, a really astute person when it comes to critical thinking. If you were to talk to them about Bitcoin, they would leave you very dissatisfied. It is on you to do the research and to figure out from very smart people what they're saying and why they're saying it.
Look at it this way: only this many people own crypto, own Bitcoin. Imagine when the masses see it. That is not a fundamental investment case.
So, okay, I agree. Also, is it something? What's going on? What's been going on for the past 15 years? Okay, Adam, Bitcoin's price has gone up. It doesn't match my definition of what a good investment is. Okay, that's cool. I accept that. I accept that. It's not like the S&P 500. It's just not. But what is your explanation for it then? People are just dumb and stupid?
That is purely the greater fool theory. Somebody else will pay
Right.
more for it than I did.
So, but well, can we falsify your theory? Because again, people spoke like this when it was $10, when it was $100. Could you give me at what point, whether it's Bitcoin network activity or its sovereign state uptake or its institutionalization of it or it's a price point? If you wanted to speak about Bitcoin in terms of price point, I don't think it's the best way to talk about the Bitcoin network in terms of market cap. But if you'd like to, can you give me anything? Give me something where you would say, you know what, the greater fool's theory for explaining this phenomenon is running thin. It's stretching thin. It can't explain it all. What is that? Is it when the United States and China are allowing it to be used by their citizens? Not for buying coffee and shit. That will never happen. If anyone who understands crypto, it'll never happen. Maybe a layer 2, but not the Bitcoin network. Not the Bitcoin network to buy coffee. Not the Bitcoin network. Okay. But could you give me something? Maybe when it reaches 500,000? Because there's so many people who made the exact same argument when it was $1, who I think if I had pinned them down and said, hey, give me a price at which you would falsify your theory, it would be somewhere before $100,000. When it was $1,000, most people would have said it's never going to reach $100,000, and a lot of people did. And it hasn't been that long, so we were able to go back into Twitter, X, and actually see their tweets on the matter. Watch a YouTube video where they made these claims. Can you give me something that will falsify your theory? Your theory, the reason why it's going up for the most part, is a greater fool's theory. Are you saying that there's an infinite number of fools such that as the price keeps going up, we'll just expand the theory to include more fools? That's not a scientific theory. Give me something that can be falsified. And I will do it. For my part, if the Bitcoin network has its use cases starting to go down, the activity between the wallets starts going down dramatically, if new wallet creation starts going down dramatically, if the price of Bitcoin falls below the previous low in the bear market, which would be like 16,000 American, something 20,000 American, if it goes to our new high and then falls below that, I will say that falsifies my theory about crypto and its growth, specifically Bitcoin and its growth. If 90%, 95% of the entire value in Bitcoin goes to 10% of the wallets and it really starts becoming skewed, that will invalidate it. If nodes start becoming centralized too much, such that 60% of the network is owned by one operating node farm, that would again invalidate the network because now it's an existential threat. I'm giving you ways that would falsify my position. I'm giving you ways where I would say, if these things happened, I would no longer be as supportive of Bitcoin. Can you give me that exact same thing about your greater fool's theory? At what points, define the metrics as you will, would you say this theory was not true? It never explained Bitcoin and it's not explaining it now. If we don't have that, what the fuck are we talking about?
Claiming it's basically digital gold, and because of that, it'll command the same percentage of global wealth, that to me is not an investment thesis. It's a hopeful pipe dream. The prominent investors, Howard Marks, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, Mohnish Pabrai, Michael Burry, they talk about trading it. They sit there, even Burry talks about trading it, but they have skepticism towards Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies.
That's good.
Buffett, often referred to as the Oracle of Omaha, has criticized Bitcoin for its lack of intrinsic value, stating cryptocurrencies basically have no value and they don't produce anything.
This is actually a logical fallacy called the appeal to authority. And that you were saying that because smart people have thought this way, I'm going to think that way too. And it validates my thinking. Look, expertise are good, but in the end, it doesn't automatically make your argument true that someone who's smart and who's in the field got it true. Furthermore, I'm pushing the point that although these people are very successful and are very smart and will do way better in investing than I ever will in my entire life, I'm also asking, have they done any fundamental research on Bitcoin? Because if they haven't, they're probably not it's like asking a celebrity, basically. They're not the best resource to talk about Gaza and Palestine. Okay? David Beckham is not the best resource for talking about the issue that is Israel and Palestine. It's just not. Buffett, although he's an expert, if he hasn't spent the time understanding Bitcoin, and he can come away hating it even after he does, right? I'm not saying that he's going to love it, but if he hasn't spent the time doing that, and I don't think there's no indication that he has, his viewpoints on this matter are not worthwhile. And he could be right. He could be right that it's garbage at the end of the day. It's toxic. It's bullshit. I'm saying it could be right, but it's not even if he gets it right, he got it right not because he was well informed.
He further emphasized his stance by remarking, I don't have any Bitcoin. I don't own any cryptocurrency. I never will. Now, a lot of people
sounds like someone who is not biased and who just did the research.
Tell me, well, he said the same thing about tech. No, he never said he never will. He said he doesn't understand it and therefore he doesn't buy it. But now that he's understanding more tech companies like Apple, he started to buy some.
I'm astounded by this too. It's like Warren Buffett, successful. Like, this is the point. This is the point, though. This is like horrible for your point, isn't it? we've got some people who are extremely successful who understand their realm of knowledge and are killing it there. And when new opportunities have arose, like tech companies, they haven't been able to capitalize on it because they didn't understand it. They didn't do the research and they didn't have the conviction. And that's all good for them. God bless them. I'm not blaming them for doing that. But it's not helpful to your point that you're pointing to laggards who were unable to adapt a new strategy in a non-crypto field to take advantage of it because it was new tech. And then to say, oh, they don't like crypto. It's also new tech that they're not understanding. It's not helpful for your argument.
Charlie Munger, Buffett's longtime business partner, was even more forthright in his condemnation of Bitcoin. He has described it as worthless artificial gold and likening its trading to just dementia. Munger has also compared Bitcoin to rat poison and criticized the cryptocurrency market for its association with illicit activities. Mohnish Pabrai, very person we've interviewed on this channel, an investor known for his adherence to Buffett's value investing principles, shares a very similar outlook. He's expressed doubts about Bitcoin's future, aligning with Buffett and Munger's views. On our channel, he said, Bitcoin and crypto is going to zero. Collectively, these investors' critiques highlight.
And they give us a falsification, though? Like, it's crashed 4 times now. It hasn't gone to zero. Can they give us? When is it going to happen, though? Because they keep telling, for like a decade, they've told us it's going to happen. It's not happening. It's going in the opposite direction. It's becoming more institutionalized. The incoming United States president is talking about creating some sort of stockpile. Network activity overall has gone up. Value of the network has gone up. It's overtaken silver. It's overtaking the largest oil company in the world right now. It's gone up to $100,000. Like the data is coming, like it's moving the wrong direction is what I'm saying. And even though it keeps crashing because it gets overhyped and it comes back down below its fair value before going back to its fair value. Even though it keeps crashing, it still hasn't gone to zero. When will it go to zero? Because if you say infinite time, then I guess you're right. You know, eventually it probably will go to zero. Eventually people will stop using keyboards because they'll all have some sort of Neuralink in their heads. So you could tell me keyboards are not useful. They're not here to stay. Fuck keyboards. Given an infinite amount of time, yes, but probably no one's going to be using a keyboard. There will be the last person ever to use a keyboard. And I'm sure given an infinite number of time, there will be a final transaction on the Bitcoin network before it shuts down and is not used anymore. But can you give me something more? Because it's not a theory. It's not something I can falsify.
Concerns about Bitcoin's speculative nature and its perceived lack of fundamental value, cautioning against its inclusion in traditional investment portfolios. Guys, I hate to be a snob, but I've never met somebody that I respected in the investment world who said they like Bitcoin. Everybody I know who says they like Bitcoin is somebody I would never ever talk to about investing. I just laugh about it. By the way, do you know how many people tell me they're a crypto expert?
Have you talked to any people who have expertise in the theory of money, though? Have you read any books about it? Like any of the notable books on crypto? Have you watched any debates between Raoul Pal and Peter Schiff? There's been a few of them. Have you listened to anything?
Like every single person who talks about crypto says they're a crypto expert. That's really odd to me. If you still want to get into it, treat it as a gamble, not an investment. Day trade it. We believe in trading here. Trade it as an asset. That's fine by me. But diversify into traditional investments like ETFs or assets with intrinsic values, such as ETFs.
I agree. Diversification is key, and you're an idiot not to be diversified. And traditional assets are very much should be a staple of your portfolio.
That are driven by S&P 500. Always conduct thorough research and never.
Have you done that? Have you done thorough research? You've created a 20-minute video, an almost 20-minute long video on Bitcoin. Have you done any research? I don't think you have. It sounds like you've just talked to, just like you claimed that the average crypto person is ill-informed, which I'm also agreeing with you, they are, it seems like the totality of your research has been to talk to average crypto people who are not well informed, because the average person is not well informed about anything. And you've talked to people within your realm of thinking who all think the same as you and also haven't done any real research, substantive research on it. And you've come back saying it's all garbage. Have you done the research that you yourself are saying should be done?
Never trust unsolicited investment advice, especially from social media or unregulated platforms. The Bitcoin story is absolutely captivating, but the evidence to me is clear. It's a speculative bubble fueled by manipulation.
The evidence is the opposite direction right now. It's crashed multiple times. It's gone from 0 to $10, and no one ever thought that would be even possible, and then to 1,000.
Fraud and hype. From FTX's collapse to Binance's record fine,
Finance.
the crypto ecosystem is riddled with scams designed to benefit a few at the expense of the many. Don't fall for the hype. Understand what you're buying. And just because you buy it with some sort of good story doesn't mean you're understanding what you're buying. It has to be coupled with some sort of fundamental analysis. If I've convinced you that there's a better way to invest, join our community of like-minded investors. We have a community who share ideas and support each other as we navigate this market.
So it's interesting, like Michael Saylor has done the fundamental analysis when he's talking about the money, the total money locked in gold, the total money in Bitcoin, like you said, 3% versus 0.3%, this kind of thing, 0.03%. He's done the fundamental analysis to understand the market, the potential market, to understand the amount of wealth floating around in the world, the volatility which attracts people into something like Bitcoin where they believe that they can make money, and the outperformance of that asset over any other asset the world's ever seen in its 15-year run. That's the fundamental analysis. What else do you want? If you're asking for a fundamental analysis that includes cash flow to a business, right, and it orders like assets on the books, an organization with quarterly earnings, Bitcoin's never going to have that. It's not that type of thing. And then you say, well, this is not, I don't understand it to be an investment then, and it doesn't have any fundamentals. It's like you've a priori discovered this by setting up the game in a certain way. It will never pass your standard. There's nothing to talk about then.
Right now, we're offering a 7-day trial at everythingmoney.com, but it's not going to last forever. So take advantage of it while you can. $7 for 7 days. Click on the link in the description below to get access to everything we have to offer. We have a site full of amazing investing tools, which I use daily, and a community of people ready to support you in the market dips. It will be the best investing decision you've made all year. And guys, it truly is an investment. Thank you for your time.
I'm just going to say it's a shame that we have people who are comparing Bitcoin to feces. And it really, it's not going to look good when Bitcoin's 500,000 and $1 million. But I don't think that he and many other people are very dogmatic. They don't understand this. They don't allow for falsification of their propositions and their theories. They're reluctant to look at any of the data, and they keep exclaiming that there's been no fundamental analysis and that it doesn't fit their definition of value, and they're unopen to reimagining how you could value something. And so it's like they set up the game in a very specific way where they're never going to be wrong. And it doesn't matter what the price action is. It's a $10 or it's $100,000. They're never going to be wrong. You can't, there's no reasoning with these people. So it just is a shame. And I would give this one, I'd give this one just a D. I think it's a fail. And quite frankly, it's very disturbing. It's very disturbing that at $100,000, again, I don't think the price action is the most interesting thing. It's a proxy, though. It's a proxy for how much uptake there has been in this network. And it is a network. It's very disturbing that people still will refuse to really do any research on it and just will repeat the same things I've heard for the past decade. I guess it's not shocking because this is how humans are, but it is disturbing. Anyways, it's a D from me. It's Adam from the Satoshi Chain, and I'll see you next time. Bye.